like there was an explosion. I don't know what it is, but smoke is rising.
Today is the 11th of Bahman, January 31st. We are in Qom.
This is Tehran. Iran was rocked by mysterious explosions over the weekend. Explosions are reported to have occurred in 11 regions, from Tehran to Tabriz and from Qom to Bandar Abbas. Some reports in local media and images sent to Iran International indicate that smoke was seen in the sky above Tehran's Parand district. There is widespread panic in the capital's streets. Tension prevails in the city following the unexplained explosions that occurred across the country. Bandar Abbas was the epicenter of the explosions. A local resident said that the building hit by the explosion in Bandar Abbas on Saturday was not connected to the natural gas network, contradicting claims made by some Iranian media outlets.
Guys, they just hit a place on Moalem Boulevard in Bandar Abbas. Everyone is on the street. The fire department arrived.
Authorities announced that 14 people were injured and one person lost their life. On social media, there are various claims that an assassination attempt was made on Alireza Tangsiri, commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. Alireza Tangsiri is not just an ordinary commander. He played a role in the Iran-US tensions at the time and is practically an idol for the Iranian naval forces. While state media stated that the cause of the incident was being investigated, it denied that Alireza Tangsiri, commander of the Revolutionary Guard's Navy, had been killed. Meanwhile, Israeli media claims that Brigadier General Ismail Kaani was also assassinated. This is not an ordinary name either. Kaani is the commander of the Jerusalem Force, responsible for special operations. The regime's first reflex is always based on denial. However, this time, the denial effort seems to have turned into a tragicomic gas leak theater, according to independent observers. If you believe Iran's official narrative, on Saturday night, the country's infrastructure failed simultaneously in 11 different cities due to a chain of coincidences that defied the laws of physics. Tehran, Karaj, Qom, Bandar Abbas, Avaz, Tabriz. According to reports shared on social media, in these strategic centers, hundreds of kilometers apart, gas pipes exploded, transformers caught fire, and buildings collapsed at the same minute. This is statistically impossible. According to military experts, this is not an accident, but rather a coordinated sabotage operation. Raw data from the field and images provided by local sources quickly cast doubt on the gas leak explanation. Let's focus on the scene of the incident in Bandar Abbas. The building that was hit is not an ordinary residence or a civilian business. It is alleged that this is a complex with safe house status used by the command echelon of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy. Statements from local residents and sources familiar with the area confirm that the building where the explosion occurred was not even connected to the natural gas network. The fact that a gas explosion occurred in a building without a gas line is the clearest evidence of how unprepared the regime's panic-stricken disinformation machine was. The images show that half of the building was cut off, as if by surgical intervention. A gas explosion creates chaotic, directionless and uncontrolled destruction. However, the damage profile we see here points to an internally directed explosive or a high-precision munition. So, what did we see in the sky? Or more importantly, what did we not see? No ballistic missile trails, air defense system interception smoke, or jet engine noise were reported in the skies over Tehran, Parand, and Karaj. If this had been an external attack, there would have been radar recordings, sonic booms, and distinct trails in the sky. But silence prevailed. The explosions came from within, from the ground, or from very low altitude. This situation leads us to a single tactical conclusion. The possibility is gaining weight that these attacks were organized not from across the border, but from the heart of Iran, from within. At this point, two scenarios emerge, both of which could be catastrophic for the Tehran regime. The first possibility is that operational teams used small-scale, radar-undetectable drones known as quadcopters, or loitering munitions, that they infiltrated into Iran. These drones, similar to those we have seen before at facilities in Isfahan, can enter through a building's ventilation shaft or window and carry out precision strikes. The second and more frightening possibility is that pre-placed explosives, planted within Iran's security bureaucracy, were remotely activated. In either case, the message is clear. Even if Iran's airspace is closed, Iran's streets, homes, and military bases are no longer safe zones. The regime's invulnerability armor has been pierced right in the heart of its own capital. The images from the city of Qom, showing a massive column of flames rising and military helicopters immediately beginning to circle the area, show that the situation is much more serious than a simple gas leak. This is the ideological heart of the regime, the place it calls the Holy City. If even this place can be hit, it means there is nowhere left to hide in Iran. While the regime's media scrambles to cover up these explosions, the black smoke seen in the skies over Tabriz and the fires at the facilities in Ahvaz indicate that the coordination may be nationwide. 11 cities, 11 targets, and one common signature: the total collapse of security protocols. We must highlight a technical detail here. The targeted sites were not randomly selected civilian infrastructure. Parand and Karaj are industrial areas that play a critical role in Iran's ballistic missile program and nuclear centrifuge component production. Bandar Abbas is the main artery through which the Iranian Navy controls the Strait of Hormuz. This does not appear to be a warning shot, but rather a shaping operation aimed at crippling Iran's war capacity. It is a classic military doctrine applied before a major military operation to blind the enemy's command and control capabilities, cut off their communications, and demoralize them. And that is exactly what we are seeing on the ground right now. The regime's nerve centers may be being targeted with surgical precision. While the shockwave from the physical explosions had not yet subsided, the real destructive impact began to be felt on the psychological front. The Iranian regime's greatest fear was not a missile from outside, but the loss of its authority in the eyes of its own people. And on Saturday night, that fear became reality. You send fire trucks or ambulances to respond to an incident you claim is a gas leak. But what did the Tehran administration do? It placed snipers on the roofs of buildings. Yes, you heard correctly. This image symbolizes not the power of a state, but a deep and uncontrolled state of panic. Are they going to extinguish the fire by shooting at the gas pipes? No. These barrels are aimed at a possible popular uprising and the phantom enemy within. The regime has become afraid of its own shadow. This wave of panic targeted not only the military on the streets, but also the top, the leader. Hours before the explosions, the surprise visit by religious leader Ali Khamenei to Khomeini's mausoleum was actually a farewell ritual or a last show of force before the approaching storm. However, according to unconfirmed reports immediately following the explosions, Khamenei was promptly taken to a secure shelter. When a leader flees underground instead of addressing his people while his country is under attack, it is an admission that the country's defense doctrine is bankrupt. The regime has replaced its promise of "we can protect you" with the reality that we cannot even protect ourselves. The names on the target list further underscore the gravity of the situation. Alireza Tangsiri, commander of the Revolutionary Guard Navy; Ismail Kaani, commander of the Quds force. These individuals are the masterminds behind Iran's regional armed network. There is strong evidence that Tangsiri was targeted in that non-gas building in Bandar Abbas. Even if regime media claims he is alive, surviving an attack that destroyed half the building does not mean that Commander retains his operational capabilities. Even if regime media claims he is alive, surviving an attack that destroyed half the building does not mean that Commander retains his operational capabilities. The intelligence failure that followed the killing of Qasem Soleimani is now repeating itself with Tangsiri and Kaani. Whether these assassination attempts succeed or fail, the message has reached its target. We can get into your bedroom. There is no longer a safe sleep for the IRGC command. Every phone, every vehicle, every building is a potential grave. This psychology wipes out an army without a fight. This internal chaos is causing a crack in the IRGC's institutional structure. The regime's elite forces are being shot in the back while searching for the enemy at the border. The confusion and fear on the faces of the Revolutionary Guards patrolling the streets shows that the chain of command has broken down. Not knowing who is a friend and who is an agent feeds paranoia in the military hierarchy. The question, "Who is the mole?" is now echoing off the walls of every headquarters in Tehran. This climate of paranoia will slow the regime's reflexes and make coordinated defense against a possible American attack impossible. The home front has crumbled without a single bullet being fired from outside. The reaction of citizens tells a completely different story. The attitude of that young Iranian man we saw in the videos, watching the explosion from his car while singing, shows that fear has given way to indifference, even a secret desire for the regime's collapse. The people laugh off the gas leak lie. The regime's propaganda machine has completely lost its credibility. A state's greatest weapon is not its missiles, but the trust of its people. In Tehran, that trust vanished into thin air, along with the smoke on Saturday night. This chaos in Tehran may not be an isolated incident, but rather the opening scene of a much larger and more deadly scenario devised in Washington. According to information leaked by the Wall Street Journal, a file currently on President Trump's desk is referred to as the Grand Plan. This plan, jointly prepared by the Pentagon and the White House, involves not just symbolic retaliation, but a swift and decisive air campaign aimed at completely eliminating the institutional presence of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The most striking aspect of this strategic encirclement unfolded on the diplomatic front. A quiet but seismic U-turn took place in Riyadh. Recall that Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries had been assuring Iran for weeks that they had closed our airspace to Israeli or US attacks. However, diplomacy speaks the language of power and money. Saudi Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman's sudden visit to Washington and the immediate approval of a $9 billion Patriot missile defense system sale changed the equation overnight. The US bought the Saudis' neutrality card with a $1 billion security guarantee. Recent statements from Riyadh describe the Iranian Revolutionary Guards as the primary threat to the region. In diplomatic language, this means, our airspace is open, planes can fly through. Iran has been thrown under the bus by its most trusted neighbor. What about Iran's powerful allies, Russia and China? While Iran is under attack, what are Moscow and Beijing doing? They are conducting a symbolic naval exercise in the Persian Gulf under the name Joint Security Belt. This exercise is not to protect Iran, but to shield their own ships from a possible US attack in the region. Both China and Russia have repeatedly declared that they will not engage in direct conflict with the US. While Iranian officials went to Moscow to beg for support, Putin's response was clear. Symbolic support? Yes. Military intervention? No. As Iran is crushed under the hammer of the West, its eastern friends are merely taking notes. This is not the betrayal of the Axis, but the cold face of realpolitik. Iran is learning the hard way, as smoke rises in the skies over Tehran, that it is a lone pawn on the global chessboard. The Tehran regime, backed into a corner, is preparing to play its last card: energy blackmail. Sources close to the regime and Telegram channels threaten that in the event of a full-scale war, the Strait of Hormuz will be closed, cutting off the global oil supply worth $2 trillion per day. However, this threat is not a show of force. Closing Hormuz would strangle not only the West, but also China, the largest buyer of Iranian oil. Iran would be signing its own death warrant with this move. The deployment of the USS Delbert D. Black destroyer belonging to the US Navy off the coast of Eilat and the increase in military buildup in the region show that Washington is ready to call this bluff. The decision has been made and the trigger pulled. All that remains is to wait for the bullet to leave the barrel. What happened in Tehran on Saturday night was not a simple act of sabotage or a gas leak. It was the moment when a 45-year-old regime lost control over its own territory. Iran's myth of being an impregnable fortress was shattered by simultaneous explosions in 11 cities. So, what are your thoughts on this matter? Please share your thoughts in the comments. To stay informed about PPR Global special analyses, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on notifications. Thank you for choosing us.